Hello and welcome to Revision Tips for SIPS Level 5, Advanced Diploma in Procurement and Supply. This is Module 7, Achieving Competitive Advantage Through the Supply Chain, and it's Learning Outcome 2, Understanding the Improvement Methodologies that can be used. So we're going to look at total quality management, statistical methods to achieve supply chain improvements, as well as the processes that you can use, such as business process re-engineering and benchmarking. So approaches to quality, quality inspection, quality assurance and total quality. If quality is compromised at any point in the supply chain, the knock-on effect can cause severe repercussions and increased costs throughout the supply chain. So procurement need to interact with their suppliers and monitor the quality of the suppliers in various ways, either through coordinating requirements for external supplied materials or products, managing them in terms of their performance, and ensuring quality levels are maintained in line with the specification. Now, quality inspections is also known as quality control. This aims to detect and correct mistakes and ensures the highest number of non-defective goods of information. But quality assurance is actually the opposite. It focuses on prevention of defects. So you're monitoring the process and methods that are used to manufacture the goods or produce your services. And it starts well in advance of any inspection point because it involves managing quality upstream. So an example within procurement is a supplier performance monitoring scheme, which scores suppliers' performance in a number of areas and enables them to compare against each other. And there are various costs associated with quality. So on the left-hand side, you've got the costs of ensuring quality, and that comes for your quality assurance prevention costs and your quality control, which are your appraisal costs. But on the other side, you've also got any losses that are incurred if quality isn't achieved. And that can be internally when you've inspected the goods and you realise they're not suitable to be dispatched to your customer. You're going to have some internal reworking costs to make it good or dispose of goods that are not fit for purpose. But the worst one, of course, is external failure cost. This is actually arrived with the customer. The customer discovers that the product is not suitable and they have to return it. So not only do you have the cost of reverse logistics, compensation, replacing the goods, but you've also got the reputational damage, which is really hard to quantify. So total quality management is an approach to changing an organisation's business process, and it aims at improving the overall performance. So it looks at preventing errors, reducing costs, improving productivity, increasing employee involvement and teamwork, problem solving, risk management and relationships, and lowering your operating costs, which gives increased effectiveness in achieving your selected goals. And then with transactions, it's the point at which an item, component or sub-component moves along the supply chain to the next to have a full added value to it. So some important points to note about total quality management is total quality is about understanding quality and quality inspection, and how they form part of quality assurance. It should be seen as the ultimate goal for a company with quality focus. And effective total quality management can improve an organisation's processes and overall performance, especially in the supply chain. It's led from a top-down approach and implemented at all levels across all activities. And it's most likely selected as a way towards when a company has achieved an advantageous position in a marketplace and they want to continue it and sustain it and grow it. So the key objectives you can see on the screen is to achieve the long-term goal of right first time every time and continuous improvement. You've got the reduction of the amount of reworks required in wasteful processes or reorganisation of processes, and providing lower operational costs and increased efficiencies. Implementation of robust quality control measures for the purpose of prevention of errors. Adoption by all functions and departments, focusing on a culture of quality and employee empowerment. Keeping customers happy. and managing suppliers to ensure that anything coming in meet your quality standards. So the objective of total quality management is to do the right thing, the right time, continuously, and therefore saving the time the organisation would have spent in correcting errors. So the principles are beneficial to any organisation because it does reduce cost, increase staff morale, reduces errors, and increases customer satisfaction. Organisations that have their core values centred on continuous improvement of the quality are better placed to benefit from TQM. Typically, these have high quality processes to meet and exceed the expectations of customers. And as such, everyone in the organisation, management, customers, suppliers, employees, all play a vital role in providing quality products and services. Now, quality inspections are measures aimed at checking, measuring, or testing one or more product characteristic and to relate the results back to the specification of requirements to confirm compliance. The task is usually performed by specialist personnel and doesn't fall within the responsibility of the production workers. Now, these inspections can be carried out anywhere along the supply chain. It doesn't have a direct impact on the production process, but they only identify defects and ensures poor quality products have to leave the factory. So these inspections have no feedback loop. It means that information about failures and their causes is not passed back to the workers or the managers to resolve. And the process merely identifies the fault and rejects it rather than fixes the problem. So clearly quality assurance is a much better approach because you're managing quality and it's a systematic process of determining whether a product or service does and will meet any specified requirements. So it establishes and maintains sets of requirements for developing or manufacturing reliable products. Quality assurance system is meant to increase customer confidence and a company's credibility. While also improving work processes and efficiencies, it enables a company to compete better with others. It will help you to create products and services that meet or exceed the expectations of your customer, yielding high quality product offering and building trust and loyalty with customers. The standards and procedures defined by Quality Assurance Programme help prevent product defects before they arise. And three approaches for quality assurance is failure testing, which continually test a product to determine if it can break or fail. For physical products, this will need to withstand stress, which involves testing the product under heat, pressure, or vibration. But software products, failure testing may be to place the software under high usage or load conditions. You've then got statistical process control, or SPC, a methodology based on objective data analysis that was developed by Western Electric Company and Bell Telephone Laboratories in the 1920s. The methodology uses statistical methods to manage and control the production of products. And then TQM, as we've said, it applies quantitative methods for the basis of continuous improvement. It relies on facts, data, and analysis to support product planning and performance reviews. Quality control is used to verify the quality of output. It involves verification of output conformance to desired quality levels. This means that the product or service is checked against customer requirements, with various checks being conducted and planned in production. Teams will use, amongst other techniques, structured walkthroughs, testing and code inspections to ensure that the product and service meets the agreed set of requirements. So quality control will consider all aspects within the supply chain, including the methods and materials. Quality control is used in conjunction with other quality improvement activities to isolate, provide feedback on the causes of quality problems. So total quality principles will include customer focus. Managers should understand and anticipate the needs of the customer and strive to exceed their expectations. Leadership should establish the unity of purpose and give direction, creating and maintaining an environment in which everybody can participate in achieving the company's objectives. Involving the people, managers need to involve all people at all levels so they're willingly going to contribute their abilities to achieving your goals. The process approach is where the managers recognise that an objective is achieved more efficiently when activities and associated resources are managed together as a process. The system approach is where the management recognise that identifying and understanding any interrelated processes and managing them is a more effective and efficient way of achieving your objectives. And then continual improvement, you aim to steadily, incrementally improve in all performance as a permanent objective. The factual approach is on decision making, so managers should base its decisions solely on the analysis of data and information. And then mutually beneficial supplier relationships is where you should enhance the interdependent relationship with your suppliers for mutual benefit to create value. The majority thrust of total quality management is to achieve productivity and process efficiency by identifying and eliminating problems in work processes and systems. Now, TQM addresses key problems like mistakes in work processes, redundant processes, and unnecessary tasks and duplicate efforts. But the TQM interventions also help with predicting and preempting such mistakes and unproductive activities. Improving process efficiency will bring about many benefits to your business in terms of cost and time. And it leads to better products that are manufactured at better costs. The focus is using high quality information to improve processes, reduce waste, and save time, leading to reduced expense that can be passed along to clients in the form of lower prices. Companies that successfully implement TQM are able to reduce variability, provide the consistency that customers value. And this creates customer loyalty and earns their continued business. But the emphasis on engagement at all levels to employee engagement reduces turnover and makes money on training and mistakes lower so that you don't have that through inexperience. Now, when we look at quality versus risk, and we think about that in the terms of a project always has a definite start and ending point, and it must meet certain specified objectives. Now, broadly, these objectives are usually defined as part of your business case and set out in your brief. They must meet three fundamental criteria. You must be on time, within budget, and to the prescribed quality. So this is often known as the CQT, cost, quality, time, or the iron triangle. These criteria can be graphically represented in that iron triangle, and there is always a balance to be struck between all three. Now, some organisations like to substitute the word quality with performance, but the principle is still the same. The operational requirements of the project must be met and safely be met. But in certain industries like airlines and railways and mining, the fourth criteria of safety is considered to be equally important, and if not more so. In these organisations, the triangle was replaced by a diamond, which you can see the four important criteria. Now, people are always the toughest resource to manage and control. Their involvement is vital for delivering products and services to manage customer expectations. Therefore, key to implementation of quality management system is the human resource influence. And designing of quality management systems creates value for an organisation and helps them to achieve their objectives. The basic human factor in quality management system indicates the importance of people improvements and involvements. And that includes suppliers and other stakeholders and their need for necessary competence. So in order for you to continually improve your effectiveness, organisations need to establish documents, implement and maintain processes for competence, acquisition and people involvement. But collating data for performance management is where it's quite essential actually. It's essential for making informed decisions and solving problems. But for data outcomes to be successful, they will need to be smart. First of all, they must be specific, clearly identifying what has to be achieved. They need to be measurable so that we can monitor over a period of time how effective these aspects were. It needs to be achievable. There's no point analysing data towards decisions that cannot be met. It must be relevant, so no point assessing something that's not relevant. And data must be timed, making sure information is relevant to the period for which you're analysing it. But data collection will play a vital role in this analysis. The different methods to gather data all fall into two categories. So it's either primary data or secondary data. And as the name suggests, primary data is one that's collected for the first time, while secondary data is data that's been collected and produced by others. So primary data is data originated for the first time through effective efforts and experience, specifically for the purpose of addressing problems, but the secondary data implies second-hand information. It's going to be things that are readily available from other data sources, like publications, internal records of an organisation, reports, books, journals, websites, and so on. And now you need to look at developing your key performance indicators. And let's think about some of the key points here. I mean, KPIs are targets. They're normally linked to suppliers' contracts to help you as a procurement organisation monitor the performance and drive continuous improvements. But KPIs need to be relevant to the important element of the contract. A company should select 10 KPIs that are priority to an organisation to measure the supply chain against them. Once KPIs are in place, they need to be monitored regularly. And only when the data is interrogated can risks be highlighted. They may be linked to service credit regimes as well, and it's far more important that suppliers' performance is right first time. So in procurement, we need to manage expectations within the supplier relationship and ensure all aspects of performance are weighted appropriately within the contract. Now, typical measures include on-time delivery, maximum allowable quantity or proportion of defects, continuous improvement, innovation, cost reduction, and conformance with ethical supply chain standards. Now, Six Sigma, as many organisations, simply means a measure of quality that strives for near perfection. It's called Six Sigma, but it may have a generic or customised name like operational excellence or zero defects. But it's a disciplined, data-driven approach and methodology for eliminating defects, and it's driving towards 6 standard deviations between the mean and the nearest spec limit. So what you can see here is the mean in the middle and how that bell chart seems to, fade away as it gets further away from the mean. When you're in that upper and lower limits, as you can see, this is classified as a zero defect. If you fall outside of that upper and lower limit, then it's classified as a defective product. And then SPC, statistical process control, is a methodology for measuring and controlling quality during the manufacturing process. So you can see all those dots going up and down. You've got the normal variation process, which links to the Six Sigma approach. And we have one dot out here that's a special cause variation. So when data falls within the control limits, it indicates that everything is going as expected. But any variations within the control limit is likely to be a common cause. So if data falls outside of those limits, it indicates that there's some cause that's likely to be the source of the variation, and something needs to be improved to fix the issue before the defect occurs again. Now, based on belts in martial arts, certifications include the roles that individuals are qualified to play in completing projects and promoting quality are linked to these Six Sigma white belts. So the Six Sigma white belts is if they haven't undergone any formal certification. But then the yellow belt is designed to indicate exposure to Six Sigma that goes beyond fundamentals provided under white belts. When you earn your green belt, This is where professionals attend and pay for a full course that introduces them to the Six Sigma methods. The Black Belt course requires a rigorous understanding of how to drive organisational-wide changes, analyse statistics and deploy lean principles. They will also be there to supervise the team of green belts. But a seasoned black belt with strong leadership and problem-solving skills can go on to become a master black belt. A champion is the upper-level manager who leads strategy and development based on objectives set by executive leadership, but it ensures that all initiatives to the lower waste and removes defects come together in alignment with the company's need for growth. Now, the Six Sigma improvement methodology is known as the DMAIC or DMAIC. Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Every component and subcomponent of a part should be free from defects. A Six Sigma process is where 99.999% of all opportunities to produce that component are free from defects. I think it allows for something like 3.4 defects per million. So it concentrates on every single process for improvement. It's based on opportunities, any steps in the production where value can be added. But the approach was developed to do the following: reduce waste, increase continuous improvement, and improve performance of process. So it can be seen as a methodology concentrated on the micro aspects of your process. The methodology can reduce variability and improve the overall quality of a process and therefore the output. Statistical facts surrounding successful Six Sigma implementation are things like long-term defects are below 3.4 defects per million. And if you have 6 standard deviations between the process mean and the spec level, theoretically, no item will fail to meet quality requirements. So each organisation picks a Six Sigma appropriate to their process, and they strive to achieve these. So going back to your DMAIC, you've got define the system, that's the customer requirements or the goals, analyse the data and verify the cause and effect relationship. Measure is the aspects of the current processes, collect relevant data, go off and improve it based on data analysis, and finally control. So you ensuring any deviations from target are corrected before the result in a defect. So Kaizen is continuous improvement. It is Japanese for change for better or change for good. A strategy where employees at all levels in the company work proactively to achieve regular incremental improvements to the manufacturing process. So in a sense, it combines the collective talents with a company to create a powerful engine for improvement. Kaizen is based on the philosophical benefit that everything can be improved. And some businesses look at the process and see it's running fine. But those that follow the principle of Kaizen see a process that can be improved. So it's an action plan. Exactly what develops Kaizen as a philosophy, when it's applied as an action plan through the consistent and sustained program, it teaches the employees to think differently about their work. In other words, consistent application of Kaizen is an action plan, creating tremendous long-term value by developing a culture that needs to be truly effective and continuous. So in order to ensure that resources are allocated appropriately, it is necessary to record and monitor and review aspects of performance. So a key task in this is to identify the appropriate measures of performance that relate to the internal and external factors that are relevant to your organisational competitiveness. The 5 basic performance objectives which allow you to measure its performance is quality, speed, dependability, flexibility and cost. Each one of these objectives will be applied differently according to the industry or sector they operate in. And then the use of the plan, do, check, act cycle doesn't necessarily stop after the first application. Once the act phase has been completed, you may identify the next improvement target and start all over again. So it needs to be repeated and applied to a process of continuous improvement where there is no end to each. But each cycle will bring you closer to your goal and extend your knowledge further. Data should be collected continuously to measure and evaluate the performance on a continual basis. And by repeating the plan, do, check, act cycle, we can maintain improvement. The journey is never ending. There's always room for improvement. So you should use your PDCA cycle when starting a new project, developing a new or improved idea, defining a repetitive work process, planning data collection and analysis, implementing any change, and working towards continuous improvement. So one thing you could be looking at is just in time in your supply process. It's a demand pull system and a common component of a lean philosophy. So demand for consumers triggers the production of items, which in turn triggers the request for stock from suppliers. So the ideal just-in-time scenario is based on a zero inventory concept. Suppliers make only what's needed when needed. Stock is delivered by suppliers just in time for the planned schedule. Zero inventory comes with risk due to the dependence on the time arrival of the item to restock the inventory, as well as any delays. But in reality, it's not always possible to achieve zero inventory, but a very low inventory with maybe just a few hours of manufacturing. So the methodology requires the right materials to be in the right place at the right time, in the right quantities, and free from defects. But this is a challenge for any supply chain and requires rigorous quality assurance. It needs attention to detail and precise delivery requirements for every supplier in a timely fashion. So building your relationships with your suppliers and keeping them motivated to continuously deliver over a long term is key to ensuring that just-in-time works and the added value and cost benefits are obtained. The just-in-time process has been primarily applied to the manufacturing industry. Its obvious and measurable application for manufacturing makes it relatively easy to employ in a manufacturing environment. A more elusive area for application is in service industry. So services are much like manufacturing in that they both employ processes and add value, but it focuses on the process, not the product. So it's therefore can be applied to any group of processes, whether it's manufacturing or a service. Philosophy behind it continually seeks ways to measure performance and make it more efficient. The ultimate goal of just-in-time is to produce goods or a service without waste and not within inventory. And although lean thinking is typically applied to manufacturing, these focuses are always anywhere. They're available wherever you want to improve a process. The whole supply chain. It's one that produces one that which is how much is needed, when is it needed, and where is it needed. So it's to produce more and do more with fewer resources, while giving the end customer exactly what he or she wants. This means focusing on each product in the value stream. And to do this, organisations must be ready to ask and understand activities that truly create value and ones which are wasteful. The most important thing to remember is that lean is not simply about eliminating waste. It's about eliminating waste and enhancing value. So defining value from a perspective of a customer is determined by value systems. So what are the steps required to create value? Then you need to map the value stream. And that's quite challenging at every step. You can do that by asking the 5 whys. Lining up value, creating steps that occur in rapid sequence, and creating flow with capable, available, and adequate processes. So you're pulling materials, parts, and information from customers and continuously improving to reduce and eliminate waste. Now, lean supply and agile supply are two methodologies that can be adopted to maximize operational efficiency. But they also allow you to be flexible. Now, both methodologies tend to reduce operational cost as they result in reduced waste. Lean supply is minimizing waste and maximizing improvements. So most appropriate for standardized products where demand can be forecast fairly accurately. and the route along the supply chain is not too variable. It boosts usual delivery locations with realistic and scheduled delivery volumes. Agile supply is about focusing on flexibility and responding to market changes. And that's best suited to markets where the demand is subject to change due to trends and seasonal influences, or where organisations need to be able to move quickly in response to sudden changes in demand. And it can be used in the fashion industry to get clothes into store quickly to maintain that competitive advantage. Now, lean supply chain management, as we know, is about reducing cost and lowering waste as much as possible. The methodology is important for organisations with high volumes of purchase orders, since waste and cost can accumulate very quickly. So an agile supply chain is built to be effective and flexible for the purpose of being able to quickly adapt to changing solutions and situations. So it's considered important for organisations that want to be able to adapt to unanticipated external economic changes like economic swings, changes in technology, or changes to customer demand. In vast portfolio of products and markets, there are some products whose demand is stable and predictable, and those where their demand is quite volatile. So for companies, the Agile concept provides the opportunity to leverage the benefits of both lean and agile systems. So mobile supply chains are namely due to their ability to move inventory freely based on the fact that there's little volatility and demand is predictable, requiring no need for lean or agile strategies. Now, in the 1970s, this 5S methodology was developed with the broader total production system. It's been spread across the world over the years, and it's found within sort of, I don't know, lean and just-in-time Japanese manufacturing. But the 5S method is a standardized process that, when properly implemented, creates and maintains an organized, safe, clean, and effective workplace. Improved visual controls are implemented as part of the 5S to make any process non-conformance obvious and easily detectable. It's often one element of a larger lean initiative promoting continuous improvement. So the 5S concept might sound a little bit abstract, but in reality, it's a very practical, hands-on tool that everyone in the workplace can be part of. Just think about your own emails and your electronic files when you're thinking about how this could work, because it involves assessing everything present in a space, so in your inbox maybe, removing unnecessary things that could be deleted, organizing things logically into subfolders, performing housekeeping tasks like archiving and keeping this cycle going. So sort is to separate out essential from non-essential. Straighten or setting order is to organize them so that you can find things. Shine is to clean the work area, so get rid of things that you don't need, delete them. Sustain it is where you have a system to make sure that this is a habit. It's a regular thing you do on a daily basis. And then finally is to sustain it. And you can do this in a warehouse to make everything clean and tidy and easy to work on as well. So strengths of 5S as an initial improvement activity will include successful implementation that requires the process to be defined and ownership assigned. This begins to create basic process team structured with assigned responsibilities and accountabilities for process conditions and performance. And through 5S, process conditions start to become standardized, leading to the surfacing of abnormal conditions, which in turn can lead to problem solving, learning and developing corrective and preventative actions. 5S begins to stimulate employee contributions and ideas for improvement, as it's important for a firm to begin their improvement journey with 5S to nurture the employee contribution that can flow out of 5S. But pursuing this first approach can have some drawbacks and pitfalls. It's perceived as a program. It may take on a life of its own and become an end goal for a firm's improvement journey. The proper role for 5S is to stimulate the shape of the culture and the wider use for appropriate techniques. It may not be an appropriate starting point because if improvements are that serious, then it may cause a constraint to performance. So if you've got a capacity constraint, you might end up with a bottleneck system. And the tool, if a firm blindly pursues it without understanding its proper role, then the tool loses its effectiveness. If you don't have the problem that 5S is designed to address, then don't apply it. And then we've got the 7 wastes that describes all activities that add cost but no value. So a process adds value by producing goods or providing services that a customer will pay for. A process consumes resources and waste occurs when more resources are consumed than is necessary to produce the goods or provide the service. Now, these wastes are categorized as unproductive by the founder of the Toyota production system. And eliminating wasteful activities is crucial to success for a company. They can lower the profitability, increase the costs, decrease quality, and even employee satisfaction. So for these reasons, companies need to identify the non-value adding activities and try and improve the process where they appear to unnecessarily eliminate them. So you've got TIM wood is the good way to remember this. TIM is for transport, inventory and motion, and wood, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing and defects. Now within a business process, each step should add value. And business process re-engineering will analyse the way processes are designed and flow within an organisation. The aim is to produce a company with a competitive advantage by satisfying the customer and cutting operational costs. And it can be implemented fairly quickly in commercial terms. So the process starts with a process owner, forms a team and establishes or refines customer requirements. Then the current output performance of a process is measured and compared against required performance levels. Existing processes is documented to expose areas of weakness. The process is then monitored against customer-based quality criteria to identify opportunities for improvement, and the solutions are developed to identify anything that should be redundant. An implementation of the new process is to measure and see if further improvements can be made. As with any strategy, the key is to prioritise based on expected outcomes or your company's objectives. So, for example, there could be lower costs if the cost or supply is quicker than a time to market. But any change needs to be managed effectively as supply chains can be very complex. So the advantages is quicker improvements and results, improves cost and time, and communication, which empowers the employees to change and enables you to get a competitive advantage. But the downside is it can be used as an excuse to restructure or remove people from roles that seem redundant. It can improve one area of the process at the expense of another if they're not managed properly. And it can increased efficiency can sometimes mean adding technology to a process, and that might not be the right type of the re-engineering that's needed. So I guess the main advantage here is to identify the processes and sub-processes, the cost and the labour that are not required. But it not only highlights those deficiencies in the procedure, but shows areas where businesses are incurring costs without getting the required returns. It does provide management an opportunity to understand the systems and their business in a little bit more detail, improving the communication within the enterprise and also enhancing the quality of internal management reports. And although the idea of process re-engineering is easy to understand in a literal manner, its practical implementation is very difficult. So they don't only require monetary assets for a company, but also the time and human resources. It may not suit every business. The size, availability of resources that are needed are different. Now, total quality management and business process re-engineering share cross-functional relationships. But quality specialists tend to focus on incremental change and gradual improvement, while I suppose re-engineering often seeks this radical redesign and drastic improvements. It's a bit more quantum leap, as it says on the screen. Quality management often refers to TQM, which is a continuous improvement, meaning programs and initiatives which emphasize incremental improvement in work processes and outputs over an open-ended period of time. And in contrast, business process re-engineering is a process that achieves radically redesigned and improved work in a specific time frame. So in contrast to continuous improvement, BPR, it relies on different schools of thought. You know, got the extreme difference between continuous process improvements and business process re-engineering, and it lies from where you start, but also the magnitude and rate of resulting changes. In the course of time, many derivatives of radical breakthrough or improvements and continuous improvement have emerged, and they address the difficulties of implementing any major changes in corporations. So finally, the internal benchmarking process. This will allow a company with a number of facilities that operate in the same supply chain process to compare and contrast in the ways in which their process is performed. So for example, if a company operates 5 distribution centres, the benchmarking process can examine a number of operations that take place at each of the distribution centres and then compare how they're performing and what improvements can be made by comparing the results of benchmarking. For companies that have performed internal benchmarking and want to investigate new ways in which to improve the performance of their processes, external benchmarking can produce significant improvements. Many companies believe that their processes are as efficient as possible, but quite often the efficiencies are limited by the knowledge within the company. For companies that are not performing as well as their competitors, they may also want to identify reasons why their processes are not as efficient. So consultants and research firms can perform competitive benchmarking studies for companies that will identify the strengths and weaknesses of their processes based on those of their competitors. And that's the end of Learning Outcome 2. Thank you for watching.